You sat in silence. The glow of the chart flickered on your face like the last ember of hope. 3:47 a.m. A red candle dropped like a guillotine. Fast, brutal, unforgiving. Stop loss hit. Another loss. But this one felt different. Not because it was big, but because it broke something deeper. It didn't just take your money, it took your belief in yourself. You tried everything, didn't you? The indicators, the systems, the psychology books. You told yourself this trade was different, backed by logic, by confirmation, by plan. And yet, here you are again, staring at your own reflection in a black mirror, wondering why a red bar can shatter your entire sense of identity. Welcome to Trading Psychology Stick, where we explore the mental game behind the charts. Quick disclaimer, this isn't financial advice, just philosophical insights from a fellow traveler on the trading journey. What you're about to discover might change how you see every candle from this moment forward. What if I told you this has nothing to do with the market? That your failure to stay disciplined, to stay calm, to follow through, wasn't because of a lack of skill, but because you're fighting an invisible enemy inside your own nervous system? According to behavioral finance research, over 80% of day traders quit within the first 24 months. Not because they didn't study hard enough, but because they didn't know how to tame their emotions. They weren't beaten by the market. They were ambushed by their own amygdala. You see, trading isn't a battle of signals. It's a battle of signals from within. Dopamine loops that reward poor decisions, cortisol spikes that cloud judgment, and old emotional wounds dressed up in green and red. But what if I told you there's a way out? Not another system, not another strategy, but a philosophy forged 2,000 years ago, designed specifically to endure chaos, detach from outcomes, and train the mind to stay calm in war. This isn't self-help, it's Stoicism. And it's been used by Roman emperors, Navy SEALs, hedge fund billionaires, and everyday traders who choose discipline over drama. This series will take you through 11 transformational chapters, a journey across the psychological sea of trading. You'll learn how to stop revenge trading, how to emotionally reset after losses, how to control what you can and release what you can't, and how to build an inner fortress so unshakable that no red candle can break it again. This isn't about trading better, it's about becoming better, so that the trades simply reflect who you already are. So, if you've ever felt like the market was punishing you for being emotional, impulsive, or afraid, this series is your lifeline. Because what you're about to learn isn't just how to survive the market, but how to transform yourself through it. And it starts with understanding a brutal truth about loss. Loss feels like death, not of capital, but of competence, of certainty, of self. You stare at the blown stop, the drained account, the empty breath, and you don't just wonder what went wrong, you wonder what's wrong with me. But here's the truth. Loss is not the opposite of progress. It is the raw material of mastery. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." The Stoics didn't just tolerate pain, they trained in it. They believed every hardship held a hidden invitation to return stronger, deeper, clearer. In trading, loss is that invitation, but only if you respond not with self-punishment, but with structured reflection. In 2022, during the crypto winter, thousands of traders got wiped out. Most quit, some raged, but a small group did something different. They built what I call the Stoic post-mortem, a ritual to turn loss into wisdom. After every loss, they wrote 3 lines. What happened? Factual, not emotional. Where was the breach in discipline? What principle will guide me forward? They didn't seek revenge, they sought reconstruction. And within months, while others were still licking wounds, they had evolved. Not because they found a better indicator, but because they stopped lying to themselves. This is the alchemy of loss. You feel pain, but you don't waste it. But be warned, many traders confuse analysis with self-attack. They spiral into shame. That's not reflection, that's destruction. The Stoic method is different. You detach from ego, you become the surgeon, not the patient. You look at your trades like a doctor looks at x-rays, with calm, clinical eyes. Build your own comeback protocol. 3 phases. Phase 1, reset, step away. Journal what hurts, not to fix it, just to name it. Phase 2, rebuild. Review your top 10 worst trades, not to relive them, but to extract the error pattern. Phase 3, re-enter. Sim trade or paper trade for 5 days. Not to avoid loss, but to rewire confidence. You don't return because you're certain. You return because you've transformed. Loss also reveals your hidden beliefs. Maybe you thought, I'm only valuable when I win. Maybe you believed, if I lose, I'm a failure. These are not trading errors. They are identity wounds wearing candlestick costumes. Here's your Stoic reframe. A losing trade is just a fee, but a repeated mistake is a tax. Pay the fee, avoid the tax, learn the lesson once, and move forward lighter. Ray Dalio called this principle pain plus reflection equals progress. In 1982, he made a massive macro bet. Confident, logical, and wrong. He lost everything, had to borrow money from his dad. That loss birthed principles, one of the most stoic trading philosophies of our time. Dalio didn't respond by hiding from risk. He rebuilt his system to ensure no single loss could ever destroy him again. Now, ask yourself, and be honest. What belief about yourself did your last big loss reveal? Not what went wrong with the trade. What story about your worth got exposed? Share one word below. Inadequate, undeserving, careless. Name it to tame it. Because awareness is the first step of alchemy. When you start seeing losses as fire, you begin to realize they're not burning you down. They're burning you clean. And once you've made peace with loss, you need to understand the most fundamental principle of all. What you actually control in this game. Section 3, the dichotomy of control. What's yours and what isn't? You believe you're in control. That's the first lie the market whispers to every new trader. You build your setup carefully. Chart clean, resistance clear, confirmation triple-checked. You hover your cursor over the buy button, confident that you've accounted for every scenario. But then the news hits. A headline. Conflict escalates in Ukraine. Oil futures spike 13% in 40 minutes. Your chart explodes into chaos. Volatility surges. Slippage widens. Your stop, logical as it seemed, becomes a broken lifeline. And just like that, you're in the red again. Not because you didn't plan, but because the world doesn't care about your plan. This illusion of control is seductive. It's rooted in the overconfidence bias, the cognitive trap, where we overestimate our knowledge, our preparation, our power. We want to believe that if we just analyze more, tweak more, predict more, we can force the market to submit. But the market is the sea, and no matter how well you steer, sometimes it storms without warning. Epictetus taught a truth so sharp, it cuts through centuries. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. This is the dichotomy of control, and it's not just philosophy, it's a trading framework. Let's anchor this in reality. Ed Coda, one of the most successful traders of all time, once said, "Win or lose, everybody gets what they want out of the market." Think about that. He didn't say everyone profits. He said everyone gets what they want. Some want validation. Some want revenge. Some want to feel alive. But the Stoic wants one thing, to act rightly and release the rest. So, what is actually within your control? You control the clarity of your analysis, the discipline of your execution, the way you speak to yourself before, during, and after a trade. You control how you react when things go wrong, how you prepare when things go right, how you detach when things make no sense. But you do not control price action. You do not control the news. You do not control liquidity, latency, volume, slippage, or the insane randomness of other people's decisions. And you never will. Quick story that might sound familiar. A trader once asked a successful fund manager for advice. The manager pulled out 2 pieces of paper. On one, he wrote, "Things I control." On the other, "Things I don't." Then he said, "I only look at the first paper." The trader laughed, thinking it was too simple. 3 blown accounts later, he wasn't laughing anymore. And this insight isn't just ancient poetry. Behavioral trading studies confirm it. In a 2020 experiment, retail traders who actively journaled the things they could and could not control before entering a trade reduced their impulsive decision-making by over 40%. 40%. That's not a strategy tweak. That's a psychological pivot. Let's talk practicals. The Stoic trader doesn't enter a position without a pre-trade control checklist. Before every execution, ask, is this set up within my edge? Is my emotional state aligned? Have I predefined risk and exit? Can I accept the loss before the outcome? If you can't answer yes to all, you don't place the trade. Why? Because placing a trade is an act of volition, an offering, not a bet you're forcing to win. You are planting a seed. Whether it rains or not isn't yours to decide. Here's something that might sting a bit. If you've ever held a losing position hoping it would turn around, you weren't trading. You were negotiating with reality, and reality doesn't negotiate. Take a moment right now. Think about your worst loss this year. What were you trying to control that wasn't yours? Drop a comment below with just one word describing what you were really chasing. Recognition, revenge, relief. This isn't judgment, it's awareness. Every time you feel the urge to override your system, whisper this: I control the action, not the outcome. That is your compass, and if you trust it, even in fog, you won't get lost. But knowing what to control is only half the battle. Now comes the hard part. How do you actually execute when emotions flood your system? Section 4, the focused mind. One trade, full presence. It's one thing to know your strategy. It's another to execute it when your breath is shallow, your pulse is quick, and your palms are sweating over the mouse. This is where most traders fall, not in their logic, but in their nervous system. You don't lose because your edge failed. You lose because you did, because you hesitated, or forced, or chased. Because you acted from fear, from greed, from frustration, not from clarity. Imagine this. You're in a dojo. A samurai faces his opponent. He doesn't swing wildly, hoping something lands. He waits, breathes, watches, then delivers one precise strike. That's it. One clean cut. No waste, no chaos. Just presence. Now compare that to the average trader. 3 tabs open, Discord buzzing, CNBC screaming, 12 charts flashing, 4 positions half-managed, dopamine fried. This is not mastery. It's mental fragmentation disguised as hustle. The Stoics had a word for this. Proheresis, the inner faculty of choice. Epictetus taught that we can't always choose what happens, but we can always choose how we act. In trading, this means one thing. The system is only as good as your ability to follow it under pressure. So, how do you build a framework that removes emotion from execution? Enter the Stoic decision tree. 3 steps, no exceptions. Before every entry you ask, first, is this trade in my written playbook? If it's not, you don't take it. Period. No, it looks good. No, I feel like this might work. Stoics don't act on vibes, they act on principles. Second, is my emotional state neutral or better? If you're tilted, tired, distracted, or anxious, no trade. Clarity is a position. If you don't have it, stay flat. Third, can I accept the loss now, before I even click? If the answer isn't a calm, quiet yes, then you're not ready. You're hoping, and hope has no place in execution. In 2008, amid the financial crisis, while most traders were panicking or paralyzed, a small handful executed flawlessly. Not because they were fearless, but because they had systems. Traders at firms like Renaissance and Citadel weren't guessing. They were following rule sets, tested, precise, emotionless. They weren't reactive. They were operational. This is the one trade mind. The discipline of treating each setup as if it were the only trade you're allowed all week. Not because you're afraid to miss out, but because you've learned that excellence doesn't come from more. It comes from better. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations in a quiet study. He wrote them while leading armies, losing friends, watching the empire he ruled spiral into fire. And still, he paused, breathed, and asked himself, is what I'm doing essential? That question cuts through noise. It brings the mind home. I'll tell you about my own journey with this. I used to take 20 to 40 trades a day, scalping everything that moved. By 3 p.m., I was exhausted. By month end, barely profitable. Then I tried an experiment. What if I could only take 1 trade per day? The filter got tighter, the preparation deeper, the execution cleaner. Within 2 months, my profits didn't just increase. My entire relationship with trading transformed. Less became more. Stillness became strength. Build your own ritual. Start with the trade as ceremony protocol. Before each entry, close your tabs. Silence all noise. Breathe deeply for 30 seconds. Look at the setup. Ask, is this a trade or a temptation? Then click or don't. But let it come from stillness. Once in the trade, stay inside it. Not physically, but mentally. No flipping to other charts. No watching Twitter. No hunting the next hit. This is your dojo. Be here. There's neuroscience behind this too. Studies show multitasking traders perform 23% worse in execution accuracy than those focused on one task. But here's the twist. The multitaskers feel more productive while underperforming. Here's today's challenge. Tomorrow, limit yourself to maximum 3 trades, not 3 per hour, 3 total. Watch what happens to your selection criteria, watch how your patience changes, watch how your results shift. Then ask, was the extra activity adding value or just noise? The market doesn't reward scattered energy, it rewards deliberate action. You don't need 12 trades, you need one good one. But even perfect execution means nothing if you can't control the twin demons that destroy most traders. Section 5. Mastering greed and fear, holding center in the hunger. Desire is the silent assassin of traders, not the loud greed that screams for Lambos, but the quiet ache that says, maybe just one more trade. The whisper that creeps in after a win, you're on fire, don't stop now. Or the voice after a loss, double down, get it back, you deserve this. That voice doesn't shout, it seduces. And unless you learn to hear it early, it will wreck your edge, your confidence, your capital, and eventually, your self-respect. Epictetus warned, freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and freedom comes from controlling your desires. To the Stoics, desire wasn't just craving, it was enslavement. Every time you chase a profit beyond your plan, you're no longer trading, you're reacting, you're no longer free, you're addicted. Let's bring this to life with a story you already know. 2021's meme stock mania. Traders everywhere made massive gains on GME, AMC, and others. Some rode the wave early, hit targets, and left. But others stayed. Not because the setup said so, but because desire said so. They weren't following logic. They were riding euphoria. The results were predictable. Accounts that grew 10x in January were down 90% by March. When interviewed later, many didn't blame the market. They blamed themselves. I wanted to prove I could time the top, they said. That is the real danger of desire. It always promises more, and it always arrives dressed as confidence. Fear works the same way, just from the opposite angle. It whispers, get out now, before it gets worse. This loss will destroy you. You can't afford another mistake. And just like greed, fear doesn't care about your system. It only cares about relief. So, how do you tame these twin demons? First, define your enough. What's your daily or weekly profit target that, once hit, you stop? No debates, no extensions. You define it before the session, not in the heat of the win. Second, build a fear protocol. Fear often masks as logic. So, write a checklist. Am I trading to recover a loss? Am I ignoring my edge just to act? Am I mentally rehearsing disaster or opportunity? If you answer yes to any, pause. The trade might be rooted in fear, not strategy. Third, conduct a desire audit every week. In your journal, answer, what triggered impulse this week? What did I crave more than clarity? Where did I overstay? How did desire dress itself? As confidence, as urgency, as I just know. You must become a student of your temptations. Because desire isn't always obvious. Sometimes it sounds like courage. Other times it feels like intuition. That's why the Stoic doesn't eliminate emotion. He names it. Here's the deeper truth. Greed and fear are not enemies to be destroyed. They are signals. When they spike, they're not telling you to act. They're telling you to slow down, to come home to your plan, to remember that the goal is not more. The goal is enough. I want you to try something radical. Next time you hit your daily target, close your platform immediately. Don't check just one more setup. Don't peek at what you missed. Close it. Then notice the discomfort. That itch? That's desire talking. And every time you don't scratch it, you build true wealth. Not in your account, in your character. In trading, mastery doesn't look like wild wins. It looks like consistency, calmness, returning to the same system tomorrow because you didn't destroy it today. So the next time you feel that tug, that hungry voice saying go bigger or don't stop now, just whisper back, I already have enough because I have control. But there's another layer of distortion beyond emotion, one that's even harder to see. Section 6, Seeing Without Bias. Opening eyes in the fog. The market is never what it seems, and neither are you. You think you're reading price action, but more often you're reading your projections, your fears, your hopes, your childhood patterns in disguise. Every candle you see is filtered through mood, through memory, through meaning. That's why two traders can stare at the same chart and see two completely opposite setups. It's not the chart that lies, it's the perception that bends. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The market is the outside event. Your perception is the battleground, and unless you learn to see clearly, you will forever fight shadows. This is where the view from above comes in, an ancient Stoic exercise where you mentally rise above yourself. You imagine looking down from the sky, first at your desk, then your room, your building, your city, and eventually the earth itself. From that vantage point, your current trade, this stressful moment, shrinks. You realize it's not the end of the world. It's not even the center of it. It's just a candle on a screen. This practice recalibrates your mind, restores perspective, and pulls you out of the tunnel vision that leads to panic trades. Here's something most traders don't realize. Your biggest losses probably weren't from bad analysis. They were from emotional analysis. You saw what you feared or what you hoped, not what was actually there. Think about it. Have you ever been so sure a support would hold because you needed it to? Or convinced a breakout was fake because you missed the entry? That's not trading. That's projecting. The truth is, we all carry distortions. Confirmation bias, seeing what we want to be true. Loss aversion, holding losers longer because we fear regret. Recency bias, believing what just happened will happen again. These aren't bugs. They're features of the human brain. But in trading, they're landmines. So how do you disarm them? First, journaling. Not just after trades, but before them. Write what you think you see. Then ask, is this fact or feeling? Second, create a bias break moment. Every hour, stop. Look away. Close your eyes. Ask, what might I be missing? Third, use the opposite trade drill. For every setup, make a case for the opposite direction. Not to confuse yourself, but to break mental fixation. These small practices compound. Over weeks, they form a new lens, one less tinted by ego, more polished by clarity. Quick exercise that changed my trading forever. Before your next session, write down 3 things you're afraid might happen in the market today. Then write 3 things you hope will happen. Now, watch how often your trades align with avoiding the first list or chasing the second. The pattern will shock you. That's your bias showing its face. I once worked with a Forex trader who kept burning profits during slow markets. Her setups were solid, but something was off. Once she started tracking not just trades, but energy levels and emotional states, she discovered her worst trades came when she felt lonely. That insight didn't come from price. It came from awareness. Her solution? No trades on low energy days. Her equity curve didn't just smooth, it aligned with her humanity. Because to trade well, you don't just need a system. You need sight, clean, still, unclouded sight. And when you can finally see the market as it is, not as you fear it might be, you unlock a new level of power. But to maintain that clarity, you need to prepare your mind for the worst. Section 7, Premeditatio Malorum, Rehearsing the Storm. Before Roman generals went to war, they rehearsed defeat. They imagined being ambushed, losing comrades, seeing their plans collapse. They called this practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not to become pessimists, but to strengthen their nerves for what reality might bring. They didn't hope for destruction. They just refused to be surprised by it. And in the blood-soaked uncertainty of battle, that gave them a decisive edge. Now take that mindset and place it in front of a trader's screen. The modern trader does the opposite. He imagines gain, dreams of setups playing out, builds castles of profit in the sky. But when the stop-loss hits, the slippage cuts deeper than expected, or the breakout fakes and reverses, he spirals. Because it wasn't part of the script. But what if you wrote the pain into the plan? What if you visualized the storm, so when it arrived, it didn't drown you? That's what the Stoic trader does. Each morning, before scanning charts or reading the news, she closes her eyes and imagines. Today, I might lose money. My best setup might fail. My internet might die mid-trade. I might watch a perfect entry turn into a perfect disaster, and I will remain calm. This isn't weakness. It's preemptive strength. It's building an emotional immune system before the virus arrives. Let's make this tangible. You wake up, you breathe, you sit, and before the world floods in, you whisper, today, the market might make a fool of me, but it won't break me. Because I've already seen it happen in my mind, and I survived. This small act builds emotional durability. and it stacks. Neuroscience shows that by visualizing negative outcomes and pairing them with regulated breath, you reduce cortisol spikes when real stress hits. That's not philosophy. That's chemistry. I know this sounds like you're programming yourself for failure, but funny thing, professional athletes do this all the time. They call it mental contrasting. Visualize the missed shot, the fumbled pass, the twisted ankle. Not to manifest it, but to remove its power. Because what you've already faced in your mind can't ambush you in reality. The market doesn't owe you stability, but your mind owes you preparation. Now pair this mindset with action, the trading pause protocol. After a loss or a win or a major impulse, before the next trade, stop. One breath, one journal line, one reset. Because unprocessed emotion is the fastest way to revenge click. And that's not strategy, that's trauma. What you're building isn't just a playbook, it's a fortress, a place within you that anticipates pain and remains unmoved when it arrives. Here's your challenge for tomorrow morning. Before checking futures or news, spend 3 minutes visualizing your worst trading scenario. See it clearly. The loss, the frustration, the urge to revenge trade. Then see yourself responding calmly, closing the position, walking away, coming back tomorrow intact. This mental rehearsal is your armor. Wear it daily. And once you've prepared for the worst, you need to build resilience for when it actually arrives. Section 8. Building anti-fragility. Risk management through voluntary hardship. The untrained trader treats risk like a dare, a challenge to be gamed. He sees a setup, feels confident, and sizes up, not based on probability, but on hunger. Hunger for the big win, for revenge, for redemption. And when it collapses, as it often does, he blames the market. But the Stoic doesn't trade like a gambler. The Stoic trades like a Roman engineer building a bridge, with precision, with restraint, with total respect for collapse. Because risk is not the enemy, miscalculated risk is. And the difference between the two is often the line between a disciplined trader and a doomed one. But here's what most traders miss. Risk management isn't just about position sizing. It's about psychological sizing. It's about building a mind that can handle volatility without breaking. Enter the concept of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics didn't just prepare for adversity, they simulated it. Seneca fasted for days to feel hunger without fear. Marcus Aurelius slept on hard floors while ruling an empire. Why? Because when you choose discomfort voluntarily, it loses its power over you. When hardship arrives, you're not shocked. You're ready. Let's return to the idea of sophrosyne, Stoic moderation. Not timidness, not fear, but proportion. The ability to feel desire and not act on it. To sense opportunity and still ask, what's the cost if I'm wrong? This is where the 1% rule emerges, not as a technical guideline, but as a philosophical stance. Never risk more than you can lose without emotional disturbance. Not just financially, but psychologically. If losing 1% makes you vengeful, cut it to 0.5%. If 2% still leaves you composed, keep it. But if 5% turns you into a different person, you're no longer trading the market, you're trading your ego. Ray Dalio called this principle pain plus reflection equals progress. In 1982, he made a massive macro bet, confident, logical, and wrong. He lost everything, had to borrow money from his dad. That loss birthed principles, one of the most stoic trading philosophies of our time. Dalio didn't respond by hiding from risk. He rebuilt his system to ensure no single loss could ever destroy him again. So, how do you build your own anti-fragile system? Start with the voluntary discomfort protocol, a daily or weekly ritual of controlled hardship designed to stretch your willpower and expand your tolerance for psychological volatility. First, paper trade your worst-case scenario. Simulate 3 losing trades in a row. Watch your equity drop. Sit with the feeling. Don't flinch. Don't react. Just observe. Learn to stay still inside chaos. Next, introduce real-world discomforts. Cold showers, fasting, silence, daily journaling of your fears. These aren't hacks. They're humility drills. Each one teaches your nervous system that discomfort won't kill you and that you can act through it. The research backs this. Controlled exposure to stress, what scientists call hormesis, builds long-term adaptability. Your stress threshold widens. Your emotional volatility narrows. You gain poise, not just patience. Here's your 30-day resilience builder. Week 1, trade only during limited time windows. No charts outside the window. Week 2, add one discomfort ritual, cold exposure, fasting, or silence. Week 3, reduce trade quantity by 50%. Focus only on setups you defend with conviction. Week 4, simulate a drawdown and rebuild from it. No live trades allowed until the emotion fully processes. Start every week with the Stoic sizing session. Look at your emotional energy, not just your capital. Ask, how much clarity do I feel? Am I trading from desire or detachment? What size would allow me to lose and feel nothing? Then size there. Because when you remove the psychological damage of loss, you trade longer. And the longer you trade, the more inevitable your edge becomes. Try this tomorrow morning. Before you even look at futures, take a cold shower. Not lukewarm, cold. For 30 seconds minimum. Notice your mind's resistance. Notice how it negotiates. Then notice how, once you accept it, the cold becomes just another sensation. That's exactly how you need to relate to market volatility. Not as an enemy, as weather. You are building a body and mind capable of staying calm while others combust. Because when discomfort becomes familiar, you stop fearing it, and what crushed you last year becomes the ground you now stand on. But sometimes the market itself goes completely insane. That's when you need a different kind of strength. Section 9, the obstacle is the path, when rough seas bring you home. There comes a moment when everything breaks. Your system, your confidence, the market itself. Correlations vanish. What used to work becomes noise. You question your edge, your identity, your future. It's not just a drawdown, it's a disintegration. And yet, this is precisely where the Stoic thrives. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't a metaphor, it's a map. The very chaos that wrecks most traders can become your launch pad, if you shift how you see it. Let's revisit 2022. Luna collapses, FTX implodes, ETH crashes 70%. Traders who spent years refining models watch them fail spectacularly. Every metric thrown off, entries late, exits panic-driven. By Q3, many were emotionally paralyzed. But a small group paused. They asked a Stoic question. What if this break in pattern is a teacher, not a tormentor? And from that space, they began mapping new edges, not based on what worked before, but on regime awareness. They added macro filters, built fail-safes for volatility clusters, and perhaps most importantly, learned to step aside when the sea went black. They didn't return quickly, but they returned stronger. Why? Because they stopped asking, when will the market behave again? And started asking, who must I become to navigate the market as it is? So, what do you do when the playbook burns? First, don't chase normalcy. The market doesn't owe you patterns. It evolves. Your job isn't to force the past. It's to adapt with dignity. Second, build a dislocation framework. What has changed structurally? Volatility, liquidity, correlation. What behaviors are punished that used to be rewarded? What isn't changing, and can that be your anchor? Third, lower your size. When uncertainty expands, your exposure contracts. This isn't fear, it's survival. Taleb calls it optionality. Being small enough to stay alive, long enough to spot the asymmetry. Now, let's go deeper. Life throws chaos too. Divorce, illness, loss, grief. When personal storms collide with market noise, most traders implode. But the Stoic doesn't try to separate the chaos. He trains to hold both. That's why personal crisis protocols matter. Never increase size during emotional instability. Strip trading to your lowest expectation setup. Allow breaks. Forced performance in crisis is a form of violence. I learned this the hard way. In 2020, while dealing with a family crisis, I tried to trade through it, thought I could compartmentalize. Instead, I turned my pain into positions, turned grief into gambles, lost more in 2 weeks than in 2 years. But that loss taught me what no profit could, that trading isn't separate from life. It's an expression of it, and when life breaks, trading must pause, not as defeat, as wisdom. Remember, the obstacle isn't in the way. It is the way. Each blow forces evolution. Each collapse births reinvention. Each "I don't know anymore" is the seed of a deeper knowing. So, don't ask when the storm will stop. Ask who you must become to sail through it. Because those who survive chaos don't just trade better, they live clearer. Right now, Think about the biggest market disruption you've faced. Maybe it was 2008, maybe 2020, maybe last week. What skill or awareness did you gain that you wouldn't have without that chaos? Share it below, because your obstacle became your teacher, and recognizing that is the first step to mastery. But to track this evolution, to measure your growth beyond just profits, you need a different kind of scorecard. Section 10, the inner scorecard, tracking. Virtue, not just profit. How do you measure success when the market lies? When a bad trade makes money and a perfect one bleeds? When randomness rewards recklessness and punishes discipline? If you judge yourself by outcome alone, you'll break. Slowly, silently. You'll lose faith in your system, in your growth, in your worth. The Stoics offer a better compass, one that doesn't move with volatility, one that doesn't bend with FOMO or false hope. It's called virtue. In Stoicism, success is not found in what happens. It's found in how you respond, not in the size of your win, but in the alignment between your actions and your principles. A trader's most powerful tool isn't a chart. It's a journal, not the kind filled with profit and loss numbers, but the kind filled with truth, the quiet, unfiltered reflection of a mind at war with itself and learning to stop fighting. This is where transformation happens, not in back tests, not in trade alerts, but in ink, in stillness, in the moment where you stop reacting and start observing. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire, led armies, endured plagues, betrayal, and heartbreak, and every night he wrote, not to be read, not to be published, but to remember who he was trying to become. That's what your journal must be, not a logbook, but a mirror, a space to confront your impulses, track your biases, and most importantly, to recenter. Because trading isn't just action, it's reflection. It's having the courage to say, I chased here. I feared loss more than I respected my plan. I abandoned my edge to feel important. Let's build your tool. Start with the daily Stoic page. At the end of each session, write 5 lines. What did I do well? Reinforce it. Where did I slip? Name it without shame. What emotion drove me most today? What belief showed up in my decisions? What would I do differently tomorrow if I loved myself fully? Next, your weekly virtue scorecard. Instead of just tracking performance, track who you were. There are 4 pillars. Together, they form your inner compass. First, wisdom. The ability to act from reason, not emotion. In trading, this means sticking to your plan when greed whispers. It means asking, is this decision rooted in data or in drama? Second, courage. The will to take action in the face of uncertainty. Not recklessness, not YOLO bets. But pressing the button even when your hands shake, because your system says so. Third, justice. Not about others, about you, about keeping your word to yourself. If you said you'd size 1%, did you? If you said you'd stop after 3 trades, did you honor that? This is internal fairness. Fourth, temperance, moderation, restraint, the strength to not take the trade, the discipline to walk away when the edge isn't there, to log off when your soul says enough. Score each from 1 to 10. Review on Sunday. Look for patterns, not in trades, but in behavior. Then, your monthly deep dive. 1 page, stream of consciousness. Let it all out. What's changed? What hurts? What's stuck? What are you hiding from? You're not writing for the market. You're writing for your mind. Here's the deeper truth. Journaling builds self-awareness bandwidth. And in trading, awareness is alpha. The more precisely you can see your patterns, the faster you can correct them. The more you witness your thoughts, the less they own you. True story. I know an options trader who journaled for 3 years, but always through a performance lens. Then one month, during a sideways market, he made almost no money, but he felt peaceful. So he tried something new, tracking his virtues. That month, he scored his highest ever in temperance and justice. And he wrote, "This might be the first month I respect myself more than my profit and loss." That line changed him. It can change you too. Because when your compass isn't profit but principle, you stop chasing. You stop needing the market to validate you. You start showing up for who you become in the process, not just what you get from it. Right now, take 30 seconds. Rate yourself on those 4 virtues for this week. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Each from 1 to 10. No judgment, just data. Now ask, which one needs attention? That's your focus for next week. Not a new strategy, a new standard. And here's the paradox. Traders who anchor in virtue over time often outperform those obsessed with outcome. Why? Because consistency of character becomes consistency of execution. So the question is no longer, how much did you make this week? It becomes, how much closer did you move toward the trader you promised yourself you'd be? But to maintain this path, you need one final element, a daily practice that keeps you centered. Section 11, the harbor within. Your final destination is your own mind. Every trader searches for safety, somewhere the chaos ends, where the noise fades, where the waves stop crashing. They chase it through systems, signals, profit goals, but eventually they all discover the same thing. There is no safety in the market, only in the mind. That's the final truth of the Stoic trader. Your harbor isn't outside, it's within, and you must return to it daily through ritual, through presence, through remembering who you are when the sea goes still. We call this the daily alignment practice, a series of micro-rituals that anchor your identity before the market tests it. It begins at dawn, before the charts, before the news. Before the world floods in, you sit, you breathe, you remember. This isn't just about money. This is about mastery, about becoming the kind of person who can navigate uncertainty with calm, act with courage, and walk away with grace. Morning ritual, 5 minutes of silence or breath. Read one passage from Meditations, Letters from a Stoic, or your own journal. Write one sentence. What kind of trader will I be today? Pre-market protocol. Review your top 3 rules. Visualize one failure scenario and your calm response to it. Whisper the mantra. I release the outcome. I own the action. Midday check-in. Pause. Step away from the screen. Ask, am I trading from presence or pressure? If unclear, don't trade. Evening reflection. Write. What did I honor? Where did I drift? Score yourself not by profit and loss, but by presence, clarity, restraint. Over time, this becomes more than routine. It becomes identity. You no longer rely on discipline to behave well. You become the kind of person who trades with integrity as default, like brushing your teeth, like saying thank you. It just is. And here's the deeper secret. These rituals don't just shape your trading. They recalibrate your life. You become more patient with others, more curious with discomfort, more anchored in storms, because how you do anything is how you do everything. I once asked a retired fund manager what made the great traders different. He didn't mention intelligence, speed, or math. He said, they knew how to close the platform, walk into the kitchen, and still be at peace with themselves. That's real mastery, not just trading well, but living well after the screen shuts off. So ask yourself now, what kind of harbor are you building inside? Does it welcome you back after failure? Does it hold you gently after a mistake? Does it remind you of your worth even when the market doesn't? Because you will lose. You will be tested. You will feel shaken. But if you have a place within that stays still, then no storm can truly touch you. And that stillness is not an accident. It is a practice. So return to your harbor again and again until you no longer have to find it. Because you are it, your Stoic trader. Journey begins here. You've just completed the journey through 11 powerful lessons. Not about trading systems or market hacks, but about yourself. You've looked directly into the chaos, and instead of flinching, you've chosen to build, not a strategy, a soul, not an edge, a compass. You've learned that every red candle is not a threat. It's a teacher, that your worst loss is not the end. It's a mirror, that the goal of trading is not to win every time, but to remain whole no matter the outcome. You've trained like a warrior. You've journaled like a philosopher. You've paused where others chase. You've questioned your desires, disarmed your fear, built your rituals, sharpened your mind. And now it's time to step forward, but not alone. This isn't just a video. It's a movement of Stoic traders, people who believe in calm over chaos, in virtue over volatility, in clarity over conquest. If this series resonated with you, then it's your turn to join us. Here's what I want you to do. In the comments below, answer this question. What's the one trading behavior I'm ready to release? Not change, not improve, release. Name it publicly. Make it real, because confession is the beginning of transformation. And if you know someone lost in the fog, someone chasing setups, doubting themselves, quitting after every storm, share this series with them, not to impress, to invite. Because this isn't about being the smartest person on the chart. It's about being the most grounded one in the room. And here's your next step. Pick one principle from this series, just one. Maybe it's the morning ritual, maybe it's the virtue tracking, maybe it's voluntary discomfort. Commit to it for 30 days, not 29, not 31, exactly 30. Then come back and tell us what shifted, not in your account, in your mind. Because in the end, the Stoic trader doesn't just win more trades, they suffer less when they lose. They think deeper before they act. They walk away cleaner when it's time, and they live a life untouched by the noise of temporary numbers. Remember this one thing, the goal is not to master the market. The goal is to master the self in the face of the market. And you're already on the path. We're with you. We believe in you. Now breathe deep, step in, and trade like a Stoic.